splashes water on her face, washes her hands, walks up to the front of the house, sweeps the entrance. This is early morning, 5 o'clock. And this is a true story. I mean, we actually documented what a woman does from the time she gets up to the time she sleeps. So you ask her, the recall is very good. You got up, what did you do? I did this. So I just read out what she told us. She washes her face, cleans the dirty vessels of the previous night, again in the little space at the back of the house. This is a slum. Can you hear me? That's where she had filled up the buckets of water the earlier evening. She brings the vessels inside in batches, arranges them, starts to light the wood fire. Every time she blows her ice mask, the flame lights up. In between she gets the vessels and the cups ready for tea, brings the water for tea, puts it on the fire, blows again, rushes to wake up her son Venkatesh. Instead, her little daughter wakes up and starts crying. She packs her quickly, drags Venkatesh, who's barely 8 years old, near the water bucket. She rushes into the kitchen to check whether the tea is boiled, goes to console Lakshmi, who's crying, who refuses to be consoled, picks her up, goes back to Venkatesh, helps him wash his face, dries him with her sari. Lakshmi still crying. Narsama rushes to remove the tea from the fire, puts Lakshmi on the floor, measures out 3 parts of rice, puts it into a bigger vessel, rushes out to wash the rice, drains the washings on the few plants placed nearby, fills up enough water into the rice, places it on the fire. Lakshmi still crying. Venkatesh is whining for something to eat. She consoles Lakshmi, breastfeeds her, gives Venkatesh a bun to eat and continues to breastfeed. Her husband's voice calls out, "Narsama, water," from outside, and he had walked all around the slum while cleaning his teeth. The men go round the slum when they are brushing. Earlier it was Datam, now even with a brush they go round. Nothing against him, but just interesting. Narsama releases herself from Lakshmi, puts her on the floor, rushes to give her husband half a bucket of water, hands him the soap and the towel, rushes back to the fire. Lakshmi is still crying. She pours the tea into 3 cups, places one before Venkatesh, carries one to her husband, comes back to stir the rice, which was about to boil over, picks up the whining Lakshmi, folds up the night clothes, arranges them in the corner, picks up the broom. Lakshmi is still sobbing. Lakshmi is a little baby, na? She puts her down, brooms the house, picks up the dust that she has collected, and goes out to the house to throw it into the plants. Her own tea is getting cold, waiting for her. She enters the house, picks up Lakshmi, goes to stir the rice, breastfeeds her, trying to gulp down her own tea. Simultaneously, her husband's voice is heard. Is the food ready? Narsama finishes her tea in one go, puts down her empty cup. The tea was cold, puts Lakshmi down, picks up the onions, tamarind, chili, salt to grind the chutney. It's now 7 a.m. Lakshmi has to go to work, by the way, and she does not do any work. Okay? Lakshmi has wet herself, but Narsama washes, and it goes on and on. I mean, in that 2 hours in the morning, this is the life of someone. I think you can all relate to this. Nothing is new, and still it is not recognized as work. Now, someone like Narsama is employed, either she sits at home and makes beedis, or she goes out as a vegetable vendor. She has to go to this market, buy the vegetables, go around the slums to sell it, or she brings it in a small shop. She could be a dhobi, she could be a petty vendor, she could be a beedi maker, she's unlikely to be a construction worker, because most construction workers, their children are a little older. Okay, not such a small kid. You realize that then we were doing this study for another reason, because this whole business of women should be given work, and that's how their status will improve. Nothing wrong with that, except that what do you understand about the work she already does? This is not work, it is not recognized, housework is not work, women love to do it. Then the second big argument is, women don't like to go outside and work. They like to work at home because of our great Indian culture where women are expected to stay at home. Now these are the Western researchers who come and tell you that women like to work at home. That's why they do beadi making, they do stitching, garments, all that. So they use a cultural argument to try to understand India. That was the other thing. Now in this context, when we went in and did a large study, we found something very interesting. We recruited a large sample of women, very large, in the whole slum, and we followed them up for a whole year. When I say follow them up, we used to meet them every week, every month, find out about their illness, about their children's status. We also ran a clinic there because if they were ill, we thought it's ethical that we give medicine, and being medical background, it was not difficult. We also checked about their work, about their family things, and what was she doing? And the most disturbing thing, and I think now it makes sense, is that people like Nassama, who would have been a maid servant or whatever she was, 50% of the women in that 1 year actually were doing some job and earning some money, had to give up their work, had to opt out of their occupation. Okay? Now that is a bit unnerving because I couldn't think of myself giving up my job. I had a small child, but giving up a job, no. What do? We take casual leave, we take earned leave, we take sick leave. But these women, coming from such poor backgrounds, have to give up their jobs. And then after 2-3 months, she again goes around looking for the job. So a servant maid gives up her job, and then after that she stays at home to make deals. Then something happens, she gives up her job, she starts stitching garments. So when we went into more detail, we found something very disturbing, that in these women, 70% of those who gave up their job did it because they were not well, because of illnesses, right? And these illnesses were such that it demanded a lot more from them, a lot more time, because if you're sick, the same job you can't do within an hour, you need 2 hours, okay? You need to rest. So they opt out of their occupation because of illnesses. So when we try to find out what are the illnesses, you find that most of these illnesses, many of them of course because they got pregnant, they were about to deliver, they had to give up their jobs. Servant maids, you know, when they are pregnant, about to deliver, out of the job. Very few homes will give them maternity leave, okay? Similarly, beedi makers, when they are pregnant, you know, they feel nauseated with that smell of the tobacco. They give up, and then they go back to their work after 3 or 4 months. Women who are tailors can't sit and do that. So lots and lots. Construction workers, of course, they can't. So they opted out of their job because of ill health. A lot of them had severe back pain. Okay? Very severe back pain. Now you wonder, what is this back pain all about? After that we did a big study on what are these back pains. If you ask any woman who's 30 plus, and I don't know whether your mothers talk about it, invariably they'll talk of back pain. I don't know how many of you have checked with your mothers, but back pain accompanies a woman after she crosses 30. So back pain, general illness, pregnancy, unable to cope. Then we went back and said, if you're in the organized sector, you would get sick leave, you would get maternity leave, you would get nothing wrong with that. But here is a whole population that lives without the government acknowledging that they are contributing services to society, and who are expected to cope on their own. They are in and out of the labor force. They are not enumerated. They are not even acknowledged. When they go to a doctor, the doctor never asks them what is your work. Immediately gives you a prescription and next. You've seen that. So we have a whole population where ill health is such a big issue that they have to give up their jobs. Right? And this ill health is related to the kind of food they eat. And I think some of you have heard what just eating rice and chutney or rice and rasam and rice or gives you very little nutrition when it comes to vitamins and minerals and good proteins, etc. But these women can only afford that. Their wages are kept so low that they can afford it. And as a result, these women give up their job. They may go to a doctor, say, get a B complex injection. You must have heard of women who go and get a B complex injection. Ask the servant maids, they'll tell you. They get an IV glucose or a B complex injection. And this B complex should really come from fruits and vegetables which all of us manage to eat, but they can't afford it. Now after 2-3 months they go back looking for a job in a society which is so, it's not structured for them. It's like if I have to look for a job, I make sure that I get proper wages, I get leave, all the facilities. Now the other thing that you can ask is, why do they give up their jobs? And the argument I would like someone like Nassama is because she cannot give up housework. See, women have to do housework, childcare, occupational work. Women can't give up men can give up housework. Even if they are helping, many times they don't help, but that's another question. Women, because they can't give up housework, they give up their occupation. So this is called the non-formal sector. This is called the informal sector. And today, more than 90% of employment for both men and women is in the non-formal sector. The formal sectors are all closed. And there the wages are not regulated, there are no labor laws, there is no surety, nothing. So the moment you miss going to work, you're out of your job. So, and health is very central in a society. Now here is a society that hasn't bothered to take care of food, doesn't bother to take care of health. We have to pay for health. None of us can be sure of free health care. We have a new problem of work which is so non-formal that people will be going in and out of jobs and we will have no record of it, right? And that's the most disturbing part. The other thing is that in India we are at such a level of development that it is a surplus labor force really. So if they don't care if some of them don't go back to work, because there are also younger people who will occupy those positions. And in this context, I think both food, health and the work environment becomes very significant for a society that is rapidly growing at a GDP of whatever, 10%, 8%, etc. And I thought this little bit would trigger some discussion if you all are interested, and maybe you all will see women's work much more and reflect on it in whatever way that is. See, tribal areas, what has happened is their normal diet that they were used to is now no longer available. Okay? And the only thing the government gives them is PDS rice. And PDS rice is such bad food. Rice is necessary, but you should have many, many other kinds of food for you to grow normally. And the most important thing for tribals is animal food, right? Flesh food. Because ultimately if you have to grow tall, you require bones, you require muscles, and that comes from animal food. Your dals can make you grow. The reason vegetarians grow tall is because they drink so much vegetarian Brahmins, okay?
So then what you mean is?
I'm saying animal protein. It can be milk, it can be beef, it can be mutton, it can be chicken.
But since
milk also has calcium, which is very important for bones.
But we have to gulp milk, so that is not possible.
It should be possible if your wages are all right.
Okay. Oh, that's why animal meat is very important. Very important,
yeah. That is the harvest, the sowing, etc. The waste of population is less. Then there is the summer season, there is not much work, we put on some weight. So there is large scale data, except it's never given to people who are sensitive about the social, economic and political issues. It's there in research laboratory.
Ma'am, this corporate...
I believe, and this is what a large number of doctors are telling us today, largest number of infertility is among this couple who are working night shifts. Yes, huge amount of infertility. The other problem is that jobs are just sitting. Even if it's an air conditioning, it's really a very unhealthy work environment where you sit all the time at a computer and then you have these nights. It changes the body's rhythm. The body is it's a very beautiful clock. For instance, when children sleep, that's when the growth hormone is produced. That's when they grow tall. That's why mothers say if you sleep, you'll grow tall. That's truth in it. Growth hormone is produced when children sleep. When they wake up, it's not there. In adults also, there are these hormones that are produced in the night, there are hormones in the day, all this gets messed up. And infertility is one of the biggest problems that you go to infertility clinics, they're only inspecting now today. Young people, young couples, landing up.
How was the women movement, any contribution in this issue, women's movement?
I think it's just too new for us to have taken it up. I don't know.
And isn't the scientist area fully dominated by the male or something?
No, there are women, but then...
They are also dominated.
No, I haven't looked at the women, but I'm sure it's not a very happy. There's a lot of burning out that's happening. So many women give up the job to stay at home. The men do the night shift then. But I don't know too many couples where both continue for a long time. It's too new, we'll come to those things. Yeah.
Change after the 90s, after liberalization and the slow kind of deregulation of labor.
No?
It gets
worse.
worse.
Yes. Because today 90% of employment is in the non-formal sector. 98%. There's only 3 to 4% in the formal sector. 90 more. Even your Maruti plants are only run by contract labor. You know that. Big Maruti plants in Gurgaon. You've heard of them. Right? People are kept as non-formal. I'm sure all your messes, everybody is non-formal.
Yeah, most of them are
contract labor. They can't afford to take too much leave. They fall sick. They're out of their jobs. So there's very little protection. There's no labor laws that protect them. In fact, there was a government order which dismantled all the hard-won rights that the workers got. Was all dismantled after 90.
I was saying because of one of my recent experiences. Firstly, when I was growing up in the early 90s, I still remember, because I come from a communist state and they have a lot of Bengal, and they have those unions. So we used to have unions for rickshaw pullers, which is still there, but they try to do it for cooks and all sorts of stuff, which are nowadays not there. They don't exist, they don't work, but I remember they were there. I don't know how much it actually did for women, but you can actually think of them as a kind of available structure through which you can try to. On the other hand, when you recently because my girlfriend is a journalist, I came to know about these women in old city who make safety pins. They are given these wires and they then make safety pins. Every day they get 5 rupees to make 200 pieces of safety pins. There is nothing, there is no party. There is no party that is willing to come up. There is nothing. There is one NGO that is helpless to do anything about it. And the amount of almost feudal pressure they go through, because there is this woman who said, I don't want to work. And the guy who was the middleman came in, then I will tell all the people that I come into your house and we do things. You have to give me certificate, otherwise you can't leave it. It's almost like bonded labor.
You go to Addabata, you'll find women making beads, making stitching, garments. Everything is now non-formal. They prefer that women take it home because then they don't have to make the factories, they don't have to give them ESI, they don't have to give them any benefits. And women make it and they make sure that they get so many pieces per day. They have to make at least 1,000 beads a day or 2,000 pieces a day. That's within the day. So that's the way work is being organized. And women's labor is used for that largely. Because it is also acceptable, they can do the housework, they can take care of the children, they can fill up the water, they can help the child with... In fact, the whole concept of child care is very different in these households. Because when we were doing our study, there was this American expert who came and told us, child care is according to, not according to Norway, because you've heard about the Norway, but a mother interacts with the child, makes eye contact, stimulates the child, etc. He said, nothing of that thing happens. Child care in these households is if you can hear the child. The child is running around, then you know the child is safe. If the moment you can't hear the child, then you worry, then you run out and find. That is childcare. And I think our children are as beautiful as any other. So when I said this, they were shocked, they didn't like it. I said, what are you talking about childcare? If you have to understand childcare here, and all the kids will run around in the slum, you know. There's a dog, they'll all chase the dog. This dog runs away, of course, and then they come back. Something new happens. So what is childcare in these days? And nobody wants to talk about it, but I think we should tell the Norway people, you have no right to take away our children. We would rather they grew up in our Indian environment. I mean, you know the Norway case, right, where they took away 2 children from Bengal.